Welcome back to Redneck Designs. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to do rusted rivets on sheet metal. Stick around. Alright, first off, I'm prepping my surface with a Scotch-Brite. This is an old siding blank that I had laying around the shop. Once it's all scuffed, I'm going to use a wax and grease remover to get rid of any contaminants that might cause the paint to not stick. Alright, once the surface is clean, I'm going to start painting. I'm going to put 3 coats of base coat down. It's just a light silver. Alright, once it's painted, I'm going to peel back a little bit of this old Scotch-Brite. I'm going to airbrush through this to give it a texture effect to make it look like it's more distressed. Right here I'm showing you the color I used. It's kind of a red oxide. I'm going to make sure I do this in random spots. I don't want it to look like a pattern. I want it to look very organic. Alright, here I'm using 2-inch tape. I use automotive tape, used for automotive masking. Right here I'm creating the lines that'll be the gaps between the sheet metal pieces. I'm taking an X-Acto knife and I'm cutting in between to finish out the really fine lines. Alright, next I'm getting my Wada airbrush, mixing base coat 2-to-1. I'm using black base coat. I'm going to spray 2 coats in between the 2 tape lines. Once I'm finished with that, I will peel the tape back, carefully not to peel the paint. Alright, next I'm getting my circle template out. I got this on eBay from a company called Airsick. I'm just using my 2-inch tape here to mask off so I don't get any dry spray outside of the area I'm trying to paint. What I love about Airsick stencil here is it's got this negative and positive circle. I'll show you more on that here in a minute. Notice that I'm sliding the stencil from side to side to make sure I get my spacing on my rivets correct. Here I'm just airbrushing the shadow on the bottom side of the rivet. Right here I noticed it started making a little bit of a hiss noise. The airbrush will start spitting if I let that tip build up too much. So just make sure you have a paper towel with some paint thinner on the tip of it to clean off the tip of your airbrush ever so often. That'll keep the buildup on your needle from ruining your project. Alright, next I'm using the positive part of the circle template to create a indentation shadow. I almost feel like softer it looks more realistic than that first rivet I did there. They look better when I do a softer shadow. But this is just a practice panel, but if it had been on the customers, I would actually probably airbrush some light silver. Once I was finished, I noticed I needed a little bit more of a highlight on the bottom side of the rivet. This made it just pop and made it seem like the rivet really is sinking into the metal. Alright, your light source is coming from the top. So we're going to take our freehand template here, and I'm just going to use the edge. You can use a sheet of paper as well. And we're going to get right on the edge, and we're going to make a really fine line highlight right here on the edge. We want to get really close and just make a really tight white line, but just subtle and not too uniform. And this is just going to look like the light reflecting off the edge of that sheet metal. On the opposite side, we're going to do the black, and that's what's going to really make it pop. Alright, this is what we got so far. Notice the highlights and the shadows, and also notice on the edge of the sheet metal there's a little bit of a highlight. You can see it now that we're zoomed in. Alright, next we're going to take our freehand template and some black paint in our airbrush, and we're going to create the shadow on the opposite side of the sheet metal. Alright, we could be finished after this step here, but if you'd like to go one step further, I got some rust color here. I'm going to mix it in my airbrush, and I'm going to make it look like it's been out in the elements, out in the weather. A little bit of rust has been starting to form and run down the panel from water. You can add as much rust as you'd like. In some spots it's nice to have an area where maybe it's got a little bit more rust than other places, like it's maybe even eating holes through the metal. Notice I got a little heavier right there, and it could add a lot of character to the metal and to the project. Well, there you have it. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial.